Did the camera make your favorite classic TV stars look taller than they really were? The faces felt larger than life, but the truth behind their real heights is surprisingly different from what millions remembered. Some stars towered over the set, while others used charisma, wardrobe, and clever camera work to appear much bigger on screen. By the end, one legendary name may completely change how you see classic television forever. Number 20. Estelle Getty, 4 feet 10 and a half inches. The smallest woman in the room somehow played the biggest personality at the table. Estelle Getty stood at a reported 4 feet 10 and a half inches, yet on The Golden Girls, Sophia Petrillo never felt tiny. That was the trick. Her height became almost invisible because her timing, sharp tongue, and fearless delivery filled every scene before anyone could notice her size. Getty was actually younger than Bea Arthur, who played her daughter, but with makeup, posture, glasses, and that instantly recognizable voice, she transformed into television's most unforgettable senior firecracker. The contrast made her even more powerful. Physically petite, emotionally explosive. She could cut through a room with one line, then turn soft enough to make viewers feel like they knew her personally. Her height may surprise fans, because Sophia always seemed larger than life. But that is exactly why Estelle Getty belongs here. She proved classic TV presence was never measured in inches. It was measured in impact. Number 19. Sally Struthers, 5 feet 1 inch. She looked small beside television giants, but Sally Struthers brought a force that could not be pushed into the background. At a reported 5 feet 1 inch, Struthers played Gloria Stivic on All in the Family, one of the most emotionally charged sitcoms ever made. Her height made her appear youthful and vulnerable, but her performance often carried surprising fire. Gloria was not just Archie Bunker's daughter. She was the emotional bridge between old attitudes and a changing America. That contrast made Struthers fascinating on screen. She could look innocent in one moment, then explode with frustration the next, giving the show a human heartbeat underneath its arguments. In scenes with Carol O'Connor and Rob Reiner, she was surrounded by strong personalities, yet she never disappeared. Her compact frame actually sharpened her energy, making her reactions feel quick, personal, and real. The shocking part is that many fans remember Gloria as bigger because her emotions were so loud. Sally Struthers reminds us that classic TV power often came from presence, not height. Number 18. Barbara Eden, 5 feet 3 3/4 inches. Barbara Eden did not need towering height to become one of the most instantly recognizable faces in television fantasy. At a reported 5 feet 3 3/4 inches, the I Dream of Jeannie star was not especially tall, but the camera treated her like pure magic. That was part of the illusion. Jeannie floated through the show with bright eyes, playful confidence, and a screen presence that made every room seem to bend around her. Her costume, movement, and sparkling comic timing created an image so iconic that viewers rarely thought about her actual height. Beside Larry Hagman, who was much taller, Eden's smaller frame helped the fantasy work even better. She seemed quick, mischievous, and impossible to control, like a secret burst of energy trapped inside an ordinary suburban world. Her real height may surprise fans who remember her as larger than life, but that is the point. Barbara Eden's magic was not physical size. It was charm, timing, and the ability to make television feel enchanted. Number 17. Betty White, 5 feet 4 inches. Betty White stood at a reported 5 feet 4 inches, but television history remembers her as a giant. That is the beautiful contradiction. Whether viewers discovered her through the Mary Tyler Moore Show or The Golden Girls, she had a rare gift. She could make innocence feel dangerous and comedy feel effortless. As Rose Nyland, her gentle voice and sweet expression hid some of the sharpest comic timing on the screen. Her height helped that illusion. She looked approachable, warm, almost harmless, and then the punchline arrived with perfect timing. That made her comedy even stronger because it caught viewers off guard. Betty White's career stretched across generations, turning her from sitcom favorite into cultural legend. She was never the tallest person in the cast, but she often became the one audiences watched most closely. That is the secret behind her lasting fame. Betty White did not dominate the screen by standing above others. She did it by making viewers lean in, listen, and wait for the next perfect line. Number 16. Mary Tyler Moore, 5 feet 7 inches. Mary Tyler Moore had the kind of height that matched her screen elegance perfectly. At a reported 5 feet 7 inches, she carried herself with a dancer's posture, a bright smile, and a modern energy that changed how women appeared on television. On the Dick Van Dyke Show, she was charming, funny, and stylish. But the Mary Tyler Moore Show turned her into something bigger, a symbol of independence. Her height helped shape that image. She looked graceful without seeming distant, confident without feeling cold, and fashionable without losing warmth. When she walked into a newsroom scene, she did not need to overpower the room. She belonged in it. That was revolutionary for its time. Mary Richards was not perfect, but she was capable, funny, ambitious, and deeply human. Fans may remember Moore as taller, because her cultural shadow is enormous. But her real strength was balance. Mary Tyler Moore proved classic TV could make a woman look both relatable and iconic at the same time. Number 15, Lucille Ball. 5 feet 7.5 inches. Lucille Ball was taller than many fans realize, and that height helped make her physical comedy unforgettable.
Ma insomma, vuoi lavorare o no? You are my husband, aren't you?
Oh, yes, I am your...
At a reported 5 feet 7.5 inches, she had the frame, movement, and control of a performer who understood her body like an instrument. On I Love Lucy,
Your husband. And after all, this is our last night.
What do you mean?
Why?
every stumble, disguise, dance, and exaggerated reaction was carefully built for maximum effect. She was not simply being silly, she was engineering chaos. Her height
I'm gonna miss you, my dear.
gave her comedy shape. She could stretch a moment, throw her body into a gag, or stand face-to-face with Desi Arnaz while still looking completely unpredictable. Lucy Ricardo felt ordinary, but Lucille Ball was anything
Well, then I don't. I don't do anything that you don't want me to do.
There'll be a row with Warren.
but ordinary. She was a producer, a business force, and one of the smartest performers in television history. The surprise is not just that she was taller than expected, it is that she used every inch with precision. Lucille Ball's real height matters because it reminds us that her comedy was physical, fearless, and brilliantly controlled. Number 14. Don Knotts, 5 feet 7.5 inches. Don Knotts did not tower over Mayberry, but Barney Fife somehow became impossible to ignore. At a reported 5 feet 7.5 inches, Knotts used nervous energy, sharp posture, wide eyes, and sudden bursts of confidence to turn a modest frame into comic dynamite. On The Andy Griffith Show,
He's the robber! Oh my God!
Barney was not physically intimidating, and that was exactly the joke. He wanted authority, respect, and control.
Scram, Leo. No, Leo.
But his body often betrayed him before his words could.
I knew I didn't like blind dates. He's the robber. Who is he?
He's the
That contrast made him unforgettable. Standing beside Andy Griffith, who had a calm and taller presence,
Does look like him, doesn't it? Except the dummy is much better.
No, wait. Now listen. Look, cool. Let's talk this over. There's nothing to talk about.
Knotts became the perfect storm of insecurity and overconfidence. Every twitch mattered. Every pause felt loaded. Every exaggerated command seemed ready to collapse into panic. His height helped the character, because Barney was never supposed to dominate through size. He dominated through timing. Don Knotts proved that classic sitcom comedy could come from tension inside the body itself.
I'm on a case.
Say, isn't that Barney Fife?
Oh! Back up against the wall!
Small reactions, big fear, huge laughs. That was his genius. Number 13. Bob Denver, 5 feet 8 inches. Bob Denver's reported 5 feet 8 inches may sound
Are
ordinary.
you confronted on the street by people saying, do you remember the time, this, you swallowed the radio, that, whatever?
I tell you, kids come up to me and they say, remember that episode where you did the da-da-da-da-da? I have no idea.
But Gilligan was never meant to feel ordinary. He was the human accident at the center of Gilligan's Island, the character who could turn a simple plan into disaster with one wrong move. Denver's height made him relatable, not heroic, and that was the secret. He did not look like the strongest castaway or the smartest one, but he looked like the person chaos would choose first. His slightly boyish appearance, loose physical comedy, and innocent expression made Gilligan feel harmless.
As usual, with the network, and we didn't do a final show. We never got rescued. So all the kids kept watching the shows, and they go to the dentist and come back and miss one. And that's the one they thought we got rescued.
Even when he ruined everything. That kept audiences from turning against him. Instead, they waited for the mistake.
Volcanoes, caves, and it was always fun to do it. Each week was different,
Yeah. Are there times now when you wish you were not the man who was on Gilligan's Island?
No, not at all. No, I had a good
Almost
time.
hoping it would happen. In a cast filled with bigger personalities, the skipper, the millionaire, the movie star, Denver became the glue because Gilligan was the reason the island kept spinning. His height did not make him stand out.
On the road.
I do a lot of dinner theater with my wife, and we do like Owl and the Pussycat. We have a trunk with all our wardrobe and a tape with all the sounds and the props, and all we need is a stage.
So at a moment's notice, you and your wife can put on a play?
His energy did. Bob Denver proved that in classic TV, the most memorable character was often the one least prepared for survival. Number 12. William Shatner, 5 feet 9 inches. Captain Kirk felt like the tallest man in space.
I remember her as Yeoman Leslie Thompson from the first 10 minutes of episode 51, Errand of Mercy.
But William Shatner's reported height was 5 feet 9 inches.
Understand life with the Enterprise's chief mechanical officer was somewhat turbulent.
That surprises many Star Trek fans, because Kirk's presence was built to feel commanding. The secret was performance.
The man you've all been waiting for. This is his first Star Trek.
Shatner used posture, pauses, dramatic focus, and absolute confidence to make Captain Kirk seem larger than the frame around him.
Charlie, check this out.
Oh, outstanding,
Original cast photo, right before...
On the bridge of the Enterprise, he did not need extra height to appear in control. He leaned into decisions, owned the silence before a
In the
command,
Hamilton room, copies of DeForest Kelly's single record, He's Dead,
and carried danger like it personally answered to him. Television also helped shape that illusion through camera angles,
when you were gonna beam down the planet,
blocking, and the way other characters reacted to him. Kirk was not memorable because he was physically massive. He was memorable because he acted like the mission depended on his nerve. That is why his real height feels almost irrelevant once the theme music begins.
Here in Rye, New York. A few announcements. First,
William Shatner turned 5 feet 9 inches into intergalactic authority, proving screen height is often a matter of confidence. Number 11. Michael Landon, 5 feet 9 inches. Michael Landon had one of those faces television trusted immediately. At a reported 5 feet 9 inches, he was not unusually tall, yet he played characters who felt deeply heroic.
I'd like to be a swimming instructor. He just figured I was an athlete and I could do it. He said, "Do you have your life saving?" I said, "Yeah, I didn't bring any of that stuff from Jersey." I couldn't swim a stroke. I was terrified of water. And this is the
From Bonanza to Little House on the Prairie.
darn little rat. He jumped into the deep end while I could stand in shallow water and help these little kids, but I couldn't swim. He jumped in the deep water and all the mothers...
Landon built his image around warmth, strength, and emotional sincerity. As Little Joe Cartwright, he brought youthful fire to the Western world.
Michael Landon was my swim instructor at the YMCA here in Santa Barbara. One day in swim class, he pulled me out of the deep end of the pool.
Later, as Charles Ingalls, he became the kind of TV father audiences believed could carry a family through storms, poverty, heartbreak, and hope. His height never defined him, because his emotional presence was the real measurement.
Do you remember somebody by the name of John Lovelace?
John Lovelace.
Okay. I was wondering if you could help me. Back in the mid-1950s, Michael
Landon knew how to look steady without seeming stiff, vulnerable without seeming weak, and moral without becoming boring.
Breath and jumped in the pool because I couldn't swim and hit the bottom and started bouncing. And I'm reaching up trying to find this kid. And I finally got a hold of him and I bounced him.
That balance made him one of classic television's most durable stars. The surprise is that many viewers remember him as taller, probably because his characters carried so much responsibility. Michael Landon's legacy proves that television heroes do not always need towering size.
I weigh 320 pounds. Do you remember that incident?
Do I remember?
Fellow by the name of John
I think we talked about it at one time, years and years ago.
Well,
Sometimes they only need a voice, a gaze, and a heart viewers trust. Number 10.
And I had a scholarship, an athletic scholarship, so he said, would you like to be a swimmer?
Desi Arnaz, 5 feet 9.5 inches. Desi Arnaz stood at a reported 5 feet 9.5 inches, but his influence on television was far bigger than his height. On I Love Lucy, he played Ricky Ricardo with charm, rhythm, frustration, and explosive comic reactions that balanced Lucille Ball's chaos beautifully. But behind the scenes, Arnaz was even more important. His work as a producer and businessman helped shape the way sitcoms were filmed, preserved, and syndicated. That makes his screen presence even more fascinating. Ricky could appear polished and controlled, but the show often pushed him into confusion as Lucy's schemes unraveled around him. His height placed him close enough to match Ball physically, which helped their arguments, dances, and comic timing feel perfectly balanced. He never looked overwhelmed by her energy, but he also never buried it. That chemistry made television history. Desi Arnaz was not just the handsome bandleader beside Lucy. He was a creative force who helped build the machine that made classic sitcoms last for generations. Number 9. Carroll O'Connor, 5 feet 10.5 inches. The loudest man in the living room was not the tallest, but he made every wall feel closer when he started talking. Carroll O'Connor stood at a reported 5 feet 10.5 inches, yet as Archie Bunker on All in the Family, he felt enormous. That was not because of physical size. It was because Archie entered every argument like a man carrying the weight of an entire generation. O'Connor's performance was risky, sharp, uncomfortable, and strangely human. He played a character full of prejudice, fear, pride, and stubbornness, but he never made him feel like a cartoon. That is why viewers could laugh, cringe, and keep watching at the same time. His height helped him look like an ordinary American father, not a towering villain or a polished hero. That ordinary appearance made Archie more powerful, because he felt real, like someone viewers might know from their own home, street, or dinner table. Beside Gene Stapleton, Rob Reiner, and Sally Struthers, O'Connor controlled the rhythm of conflict with voice, posture, and explosive timing. The surprise is that Archie's dominance came less from height and more from emotional pressure. Carroll O'Connor proved that television presence can feel massive when a performer knows how to turn one chair, one room, and one argument into a cultural battlefield. Number 8. Leonard Nimoy, 5 feet 11.75 inches. Leonard Nimoy was almost 6 feet tall, but Mr. Spock seemed even taller because he carried himself like emotion itself had to look up at him. At a reported 5 feet 11.75 inches, Nimoy had the perfect physical balance for Star Trek. He was tall enough to appear elegant and commanding, but not so towering that he overshadowed the ensemble. His real power came from stillness. While other characters reacted with panic, anger, or urgency, Spock could lift an eyebrow and change the entire temperature of a scene. That restraint made him unforgettable. The pointed ears, precise voice, and calm posture helped create one of television's most iconic figures. But Nimoy gave Spock something deeper: loneliness hidden behind logic. His height contributed to that image. He often looked slightly above the emotional storm around him, observing humanity rather than fully joining it. Yet the more detached he seemed, the more viewers searched for feeling beneath the surface. That is why Spock became more than a science officer. He became a symbol for anyone who felt different, controlled, misunderstood, or caught between two worlds. Leonard Nimoy's nearly 6-foot frame gave Spock dignity, but his quiet emotional intelligence gave him immortality. The truth is simple: Spock did not need to raise his voice to dominate a scene. He only needed to stand there and make silence feel fascinating. Number 7. Andy Griffith, 6 feet. Andy Griffith stood at a reported 6 feet tall, but his real height on television came from calm authority. On The Andy Griffith Show, Sheriff Andy Taylor did not need to shout, threaten, or act tough to control Mayberry. That was the magic. His height gave him a steady, reassuring physical presence, yet Griffith softened it with warmth, humor, and patience. He looked like the kind of man who could handle trouble without becoming trouble himself. In a world of noisy sitcom characters, Andy Taylor felt different. He listened. He paused. He let other people reveal themselves before stepping in with quiet wisdom. That made his 6-foot frame feel less intimidating and more protective. Beside Don Knotts, whose nervous energy bounced around every scene, Griffith became the perfect anchor. Barney Fife panicked. Andy absorbed the panic. Barney overacted. Andy underplayed. That contrast created one of classic television's greatest partnerships. Fans may remember Andy as tall because he represented moral height as much as physical height. He was the center of a town built on trust, simplicity, and small human lessons. But Griffith's genius was never in making Andy perfect. It was in making him believable. He proved that a television star could command attention by doing less, not more. At 6 feet tall, Andy Griffith did not tower over Mayberry. He held it together. Number 6. Dick Van Dyke, 6 feet and half an inch. Dick Van Dyke did not just stand tall, he moved tall. At a reported 6 feet and half an inch, he had the long-limbed physicality that made every stumble, dance step, pratfall, and doorway entrance feel like choreography. On The Dick Van Dyke Show, his height became part of the comedy itself. Rob Petrie was smart, charming, and likable, but Van Dyke's body made him wonderfly unpredictable.
Or thrilled or anything.
Hurry. It's all right, Mary. I wish somebody had told me that about...
He could look elegant one second and collapse into comic chaos the next. That contrast was his secret weapon.
Hey, it's
Tony, will you turn on...
His height gave him reach, rhythm, and a kind of elastic visual humor that few sitcom actors could match. When he tripped over the ottoman, danced across the living room, or reacted with exaggerated panic, the joke worked.
Tonight we're going to examine the career of Councilman Charles Harkney. Right after this commercial message.
Because his whole body became part of the punchline. Yet he never felt clumsy in a careless way. Every move seemed controlled by a performer who understood timing down to the inch. Beside Mary Tyler Moore...
I thought it was terrific. I thought it was just terrific.
He created one of television's most stylish and believable couples, mixing sophistication with silliness. His real height may not shock fans, but the way he used it should. Dick Van Dyke proved that tallness on screen is not just about standing above others. It is about how a performer fills space, bends it, breaks it, and turns movement into memory. Number 5. Alan Alda, 6 feet 2 inches. Alan Alda stood at a reported 6 feet 2 inches, but Hawkeye Pierce was never powerful, because he looked tall. He was powerful because he looked like a man trying to survive heartbreak with humor. On MAH, Alda's height gave him a natural presence in crowded operating rooms, tense military spaces, yet he used that presence in a surprisingly human way. Hawkeye could be sarcastic, rebellious, flirtatious, exhausted, compassionate, and furious, sometimes in the same scene. His tall frame helped him stand out, but his emotional range made viewers stay. He was not the traditional heroic soldier. He was a doctor trapped in a war zone, fighting death with jokes, because silence would have been unbearable. That made Alda's performance feel modern and deeply layered. When Hawkeye leaned into comedy, his height gave him loose, casual confidence. When the drama turned serious, that same height made his vulnerability more striking. A tall man breaking down on screen can feel especially painful because the audience sees strength running out of places to hide. That was Alda's gift. He made intelligence feel wounded and comedy feel like armor. His real height fits the character perfectly, but it was never the most important thing about him. Alan Alda's greatness came from showing that the tallest person in the room could also be the one carrying the heaviest emotional burden. Number 4. Lorne Greene, 6 feet. Lorne Greene stood at a reported 6 feet tall, but Ben Cartwright felt like a mountain because his voice did half the standing for him. On Bonanza, Greene played the powerful patriarch of the Ponderosa with a kind of authority that seemed carved from timber, dust, and family loyalty. His height gave him dignity, but his deep voice, calm stare, and controlled gestures turned him into something larger than a Western father. He became a symbol of order. In a series built around land, sons, conflict, and frontier morality, Ben Cartwright needed to feel unshakable. Greene delivered that feeling without constantly raising his voice. He could sit across from someone and make the room feel serious. He could look at one of his sons and turn disappointment into drama. That kind of power was not about being the tallest man on the set. In fact, Dan Blocker was physically much larger, yet Green still felt like the head of the family, because authority came from emotional command. His 6-foot height supported the image, but his presence completed it. Viewers believed Ben Cartwright because Green made leadership feel heavy, not glamorous. He showed that fatherhood in classic television could be stern, tender, proud, and painful all at once. Lorne Greene did not simply play a rancher. He played the moral center of an entire television empire. Number 3. Dan Blocker, 6 feet 4 inches. Dan Blocker was not just tall. He changed the energy of a scene the moment he entered it. At a reported 6 feet 4 inches, the Bonanza star had the kind of physical size television could not ignore. As Hoss Cartwright, Blocker could have easily been used as nothing more than the giant son of the family. Instead, he gave the character warmth, innocence, humor, and surprising emotional depth. That contrast made him unforgettable. Hoss looked like he could break a door with one hand, but he often carried himself with gentleness. His size made his kindness more powerful because viewers expected force and found heart instead. In Western television, where toughness often defined masculinity, Blocker created something richer. He showed that strength could be protective rather than threatening. Standing beside Lorne Greene, Michael Landon, and Pernell Roberts, he was clearly the physical giant of the Cartwright family. Yet he rarely made scenes feel heavy-handed. His timing was soft, his expressions were open, and his presence gave Bonanza one of its most beloved emotional anchors. The shocking part is not simply that he was 6 feet 4 inches. It is how carefully he avoided letting that height become the whole performance. Dan Blocker proved that a giant on television could be remembered not for intimidation, but for tenderness. Number 2. B. Arthur, 5 feet 9.5 inches. B. Arthur stood at a reported 5 feet 9.5 inches, and she knew exactly how to make every inch count. On Maude and later The Golden Girls, Arthur brought a rare kind of female authority to television. Dry, intelligent, sharp, and absolutely impossible to ignore. Her height helped shape that power. She did not enter a room like someone asking for permission. She entered like someone who had already read the room and found it disappointing. That became part of her comedy. Her long frame, deep voice, and perfectly timed stare could turn a simple pause into a punchline. As Dorothy Zbornak, she often played the frustrated realist surrounded by chaos, romance, foolishness, and absurdity. But beneath the sarcasm was a character with loneliness, pride, and emotional bruises. Arthur made Dorothy funny because she made her honest. Her height also created wonderful visual contrast with Estelle Getty, who played her mother despite being shorter and actually younger in real life. That casting twist added another layer to the show's strange magic. B. Arthur's reported height may surprise some fans, but her towering presence will not. She represented a kind of woman television had not always celebrated. Mature, blunt, complicated, and fiercely smart. B. Arthur proved that height, voice, timing, and attitude could combine into something unforgettable. Number 1. Jim Backus, 5 feet 10 inches. Jim Backus was not the tallest classic TV star on this list, but he played wealth, ego, and comic superiority like a man standing on a private island of his own. At a reported 5 feet 10 inches, Backus became unforgettable as Thurston Howell III on Gilligan's Island, the millionaire who somehow brought country club arrogance into a shipwreck. His height was average compared with some towering television figures, but his character never felt average for a second. Backus used voice as his main weapon. That polished, nasal, upper-class delivery made Howell sound like he expected even coconuts to respect his bank account. The comedy came from the absurd contrast. A rich man trapped in the same dirt, heat, and danger as everyone else, still behaving as if status could rescue him. His physical presence supported the joke because he looked dignified enough to believe in his own importance, yet ridiculous enough to make viewers laugh at it. Backus had already built a strong career before Gilligan's Island, including voice work as the famously nearsighted Mr. Magoo, but Howell gave him a permanent place in TV memory. His real height may not seem shocking, but his screen identity was huge. Jim Backus proved that classic television did not always need a giant body to create a giant personality. Sometimes all it took was one voice, one raised eyebrow, and absolute confidence in a completely hopeless situation. So, did any of these real heights surprise you? Or did one star look completely different from what you remembered? Classic television was full of clever camera work, powerful personalities, and screen legends who seemed larger than life. Drop the name that shocked you most, and keep watching, because the next classic TV secret may change everything you thought you knew.